Oh, hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. We are going to start in about 3 minutes. In the meantime, we've just launched a quick poll. If you can let us know what stage of the process are you in and where you're coming from, that would be great. And then approximately 2.5 minutes, we are actually going to start. So we're going to start in just 1 minute. In the meantime, thank you for answering these questions in the poll, letting us know where you're coming from and what stage of the process are you in. And if you can please let us know in the chat box that you can hear us well. That would be great. If you could hear us well, if you could see the screen, that means that we are almost ready to start. All throughout our seminar, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can always put these questions in a chat box. There's also the Q&A box. So if you have more personal questions, then please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. And the way the chat box, okay, perfect. Yes, I see a lot of the responses. So the way that both chat and Q&A work is any questions that you post, we are going to see it, but other people here on this seminar won't. So if you have any sort of a personal question, like should I still apply if my GPA is below 3.0, then please feel free to put it in the chat box. And again, it's only us who are going to see it. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for us to get started. My name is Sergey. I'm a president of a company called Admit Master. I'm also one of the GMAT instructors. And today I'm joined by our dear partners, Corey from the John Molson School of Business. We are going to start by having a brief overview of what is the John Molson School of Business. And Corey is going to talk a little bit about the MBA programs at the John Molson School of Business, as well as a little bit about the application criteria, because I know many of you are considering applying to the GMSB. So talking about the overall application process, as well as perhaps how the GMAT fits into this process, is something we're going to start with for about 10-15 minutes or so. If you have any questions to Corey, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A box, the chat box. And then afterwards, we're going to switch gears a little bit and start talking about that GMAT exam that I know that many of you might be wondering, well, how do I do well on this test? So we're going to do this very shortly. But first, help me welcome Corey from John Molson School of Business. Welcome, Corey. So great to see you here, and thanks so much for joining us.
Great. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Sergey, for organizing this session. And as was mentioned, I'll go over some of our different MBA programs. This is really just a teaser as it relates to our MBA programs. I would encourage you to attend one of our full online information sessions where you do have an opportunity to learn more about our different programs. So first and foremost, if you have any questions throughout the session or a little bit afterwards, if you think of something later, feel free to send us an email at gradadvisor.jmsb@concordia.ca. In a little bit, I'll enter it into the chat while Sergey is doing his presentation, just so you can copy it down, and feel free to reach out if you want to schedule a one-on-one or if you want to go over your individual profile. So in terms of our MBA programs, we have three distinct MBA programs. First and foremost, we do have our full and part-time MBA program. So this is what we refer to as our more regular MBA program, and the curriculum tends to focus on the development of leadership skills. It is a case-based approach, so throughout your different classes, you have an opportunity to use real-world cases. There are many different experiential learning opportunities, whether that's participating or organizing case competitions, doing pro bono consulting, or a variety of other initiatives. It is a relatively flexible schedule, so if you happen to be from Montreal and want to continue working, you do have an opportunity to work 9 to 5 and then pursue your courses in the evening. Or if you're looking to do the program on a full-time basis, we do have a mixture of daytime and evening classes as well. The number of courses you take does dictate how long the program will take to complete. So if you do it on a full-time basis, you can usually complete it in about 20 months. However, if you do it on a part-time basis, and for us, part-time is 1 to 2 courses per semester, it can take you up to 4 years to complete it. However, we see most students completing the program in about 28 months, depending on how quickly they can move through the courses. And this assumes as well that you take at least one course during the summer. Our MBA in Investment Management, as the title suggests, is a little bit more focused on the area of investment management. So not only do you have an opportunity to earn your MBA, but you also have an opportunity to work towards the CFA designation. So we do integrate a lot of the CFA charter material into the program, and this means that while you're getting your MBA, you also have an opportunity to move up within the CFA. So if, for example, you haven't completed the first level, you have an opportunity to do so, or if you wanted to go for your CFA2, you also have the opportunity to do that. This schedule is flexible as well. However, it tends to focus more on weekday evenings and then classes all day Saturday. So typically you may have classes on, let's say, Tuesday and Thursday, and then all day Saturday. And depending if you complete the program on a full or part-time basis, it can take you 2 to 3 years to complete it. Our executive MBA program is typically designed for those who have more significant work experience, and by significant, we mean 10 plus years, of which about 5 needs to be in a managerial type position. It is case-based and provides senior professionals an opportunity to network with their peers and also level up their skill set as well. The course schedule is quite unique given that it occurs on alternating Fridays and Saturdays. So let's say in a month you may start with full day Friday classes, then the next week all day Saturday, the following week all day Friday, and then the last week all day Saturday. And you go through this pattern throughout the program. It typically takes about 20 or so months to complete the program, and there's not really any classes in the summer, so you have a little bit of a break during your second year. The John Molson School of Business is highly ranked in a variety of different accreditations and rankings. So we were actually one of the first universities in Montreal to be accredited by the AACSB and also EQUIS. So this double crown accreditation speaks to the quality of our teaching and our overall academic environment. We're also proud to say that we were the first university in Canada to be parity certified at the gold level, and then we've also been ranked either first or second across a variety of other metrics. So in terms of being best business school, and then being among the best business schools with entrepreneurship focused programs, as well as our global executive MBA program. So as we dive a little bit deeper into our programs, our full or part-time MBA program is typically catered to working professionals who have between 2 and 10 years of work experience, who are looking to grow in their careers, switch careers, or even start their own business. So when we look at our typical MBA student, they have about 6 or so years of full-time post-graduation work experience. What you'll learn throughout this MBA program is, again, based on different case materials, and you see this through a variety of different classes. So an MBA program, in this case, is 45 credits, of which there are 10 core courses. So these are courses that everybody has an opportunity to take. And this gives you the core foundational knowledge related to business. So let's say you didn't necessarily study in business. This is a great way to refine your business acumen. And if you did happen to complete a BCom or other undergraduate degree in business, it gives you an opportunity to challenge your way of thinking and learn new ways of interpreting information. You then have 5 elective courses, and you can choose these in a variety of different areas. So you do have an opportunity to, let's say, if you wanted to focus specifically on marketing or finance or a variety of other areas, you can do so. Or what we see most commonly is students take electives from a variety of different areas to have a well-rounded business profile. In terms of experiential learning, I mentioned a bit earlier, but you do have an opportunity to participate in case competitions. There are consulting opportunities. You can engage in the community service initiative. And if you so choose, you have an opportunity to participate in our exchange program. Again, the program can typically be finished in about 2 to 4 years. And we are the only English part-time MBA program in Quebec. We have 2 intakes, so there's the fall and the winter intake, and we do offer a flexible class schedule, as I mentioned before, with classes either taking place during the day or the evening. It is worth noting that if you're in the part-time program and you're looking to maintain your 9 to 5 employment, it is entirely possible to complete your courses exclusively in the evening. So it may be that you have, let's say, classes on Tuesday and Thursday evening, meaning you can complete or you can continue working as well. We do have a new GMAT waiver policy, depending if your profile fits the criteria we're looking at. So it really depends on the sort of degree you studied, whether you had an opportunity to gain any specific designations. But for that, I would encourage you to visit our website just to review what the potential criteria may be. In terms of other basic admission requirements, it does relate to your overall profile. So we are looking for a CV, usually 1 or 2 pages outlining your key accomplishments. We're looking for 2 letters of reference, typically from someone who has a direct experience with your professional skill set, and then other minor requirements such as completing a personal statement, so why you're interested in the MBA program, as well as an opportunity to upload your grades and other smaller admission requirements as well. So our MBA program is known for having one of the better return on investments. So it is affordable when compared to other programs within Canada and across the world. And the special designation of being double crown accredited also makes it one of the more affordable ones when you're looking at that particular subset of programs. Just for context, if you are a local student, so you qualify for Quebec residency tuition rates, our program typically costs about $7,000 for the full program. If you're from the rest of Canada, it usually hovers in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. And then if you happen to be an international student, our program typically hovers in the $50,000 to $55,000 range, which overall is quite affordable. When we look more specifically at our MBA in investment management, it is catered to individuals with a background or an interest in finance. So, for example, if you have an undergraduate degree in economics, business, accounting, or a field or related field with a business concentration in finance, or we do have some individuals who have, for example, an undergraduate degree in a different field and demonstrated knowledge of basic finance and accounting through other means such as industry certificates. So let's say if you did your CFA or your CPA, or if you've done independent coursework as well. So let's say you studied, as an example, in engineering and you decided to do a minor in finance, that may make you a good candidate for this program as well. So in terms of what the program has to offer, again, it does combine the MBA and CFA materials. So not only do you have an opportunity to continue working, but you also pursue an MBA and the CFA at the same time. We do integrate about 70% of the CFA charter material into the program, and it is what we consider a full-time program on a part-time basis. So as mentioned before, it is typically 2 evenings per week and all day Saturdays. But if you choose the part-time option, it would be one evening per week and then all day Saturdays. So if you do the full-time option, you can usually complete it in 2 years, whereas the part-time option is delivered in 3 years. And this particular program only has a fall intake. So this is a unique program because it is one of our privatized programs, so you do have access to a variety of different services that are not included in our regular MBA program. So it does give you an opportunity to break into the financial field if you may not necessarily have experience in that area right now by gaining, for example, your CFA charter. It also gives you an opportunity to gain industry exposure. So we do host a variety of speaker series, mentorship circles, networking events, and a highly finance focused network of alumni and other professionals. You do have an opportunity to earn real world investment experience through the Goodman Investment Club. And you do have also an opportunity to access one-on-one support. So when it comes to how you flow through the program, if you're requiring any coaching or mentoring or career support, you do have access to those services. And then it also is what we consider lifelong learning, because even after you graduate, you do have an opportunity to come back and participate in a variety of different activities or workshops. So your tuition includes a variety of different things. So the tuition for this program ranges from about the 55 to $65,000 range, and this includes your meals on class days, access to exclusive facilities, so you have study rooms and other laboratory space, and then other special activities. So, for example, exam writing and study skills workshops, interview skills workshops, career preparation and networking events, visits to different employers, industry speaker series, as well as, for example, Excel financial modeling workshops and soft skill development workshop, and which is available to all alumni. The admission requirements are very similar to our regular MBA program, the two letters of reference, copy of your CV. However, this MBA program requires a cumulative 2 years of work experience versus the regular MBA, where you're required to have a minimum of 2 years of post-graduation work experience. So this program tends to be catered more towards individuals who are a little earlier in their career. Shifting gears entirely to our executive MBA program, this is geared towards professionals with managerial experience. So, on average, our class has about 14 years of work experience, of which about 5 is managerial. This is advanced hands-on curriculum, so it is a relatively small cohort, and you do have an opportunity to combine case-based learning and experiential components. So, this program really involves learning by doing. When it comes to deepening your management expertise, it does give you an opportunity to work very closely with your cohort. The cohorts range from about, I would say, 15 to 25 students, depending on the years. And since you go through the program together in a cohort model, you really get to know your colleagues quite well. And that can be one of the greatest values of pursuing a program like this, is the network you have an opportunity to build. Again, this program has a flexible schedule, so you typically study on alternating Fridays and Saturdays, and you have an opportunity to become what we refer to as a complete executive with supporting modules which cover, for example, how to be a healthy executive, the lead executive coaching and mentorship. We have a class champion every year who is typically a very well-established local business leader. We have a 1 week cultural trip and professional international trips. So in previous years, they've gone to, I believe, Colombia, Morocco, and a variety of other places. And you also have an opportunity to connect with local indigenous communities and their business practices. So in the past, they've gone to, for example, Ganawage or Wendake to learn about how indigenous businesses are run. Lastly, the tuition for our executive MBA is about $85,000 for the full program, and this includes the administration of the program, experiential trips, so your international trip, visits to local indigenous communities, and other local activities. And you also have access to coaching, mentoring, health and wellness, meals on your class days, lifelong learning, exclusive facilities, as well as 24 access to these facilities. So our executive MBA program and our MBA in investment management are on the same floor, and it's really only students in those programs who have primarily access to those floors and those different study rooms. So I know this was a lot of information to throw at you relatively quickly, so I'm more than happy to stick around throughout Sergey's session and answer any questions, and I will be putting in some relevant links into the chat so you have an opportunity to review our websites, and also if you're looking to learn more about our programs, I would invite you to one of our info sessions where we usually take about an hour to go over our different programs. So on that note, I will stop sharing my screen, and now Sergey can complete his part.
Thank you so much, Corey. This was very, very informative. And for everyone, I know there are a couple of questions that people have put in the chat box. So if you can please respond perhaps to them. And if you have any questions whatsoever, then please post them for Corey as well. But in the meantime, we are going to start talking about the GMAT. So just again, my name is Sergey, and I'm a program director, president of a company called AdmitMaster. And today, over the next 40 minutes or so, I want to share with you some tips and tricks on how you can actually get a high score on the GMAT. What is it actually going to take? And what is the GMAT overall? How do I actually tackle this test? I know many of you are just starting, or perhaps you've come to some of these workshops, but you haven't yet perhaps done a lot of studies. So this is really going to be intended to give you that initial boost for your studies. What I would like to encourage you to do over the next 40 minutes is grab a pen and paper and make sure that you actually participate. We are going to be doing some exercises together. Yeah, this is not an exam, so there are not going to be any quizzes, don't worry. But I will give you a chance to try out some of these questions so that you, again, have an idea of what to expect. In fact, here's the first question that I wanted for us to do together today. And this is a fairly typical GMAT question, something that you might expect on the day of the test. Of course, not exactly that same question, but a question that might be very similar to that. So here's the question. Aaron will jog from home at X miles an hour and then walk back home by the same route at Y miles an hour. How many miles from home can Aaron jog so that he spends a total of T hours jogging and walking? Wow. Okay. Should we read it again, maybe? Looks a little confusing. What exactly are they talking about here? And it seems like we've done something like that probably way back in maybe grade 6 and 7. So maybe the answer choices are going to somehow help us, because the GMAT's a multiple choice exam. So maybe we don't actually need to solve this problem. Maybe we can just look at the answer choices and say, yeah, has to be that one. So let's look at the answer choices. What do you think? Do they help? Or do you think they make the question even more confusing? Let me know, please, in the chat box. Maybe give me a number 5 if you think the answer choices really help here, or number 1 if you feel the answer choices make the question even more confusing. Let me know in the chat box. Oh yeah, I see a lot of ones. Yes, of course. I mean, you look at the answer choices, and we would love to see some numbers, right? They're saying, okay, somebody's driving at like 100 kilometers an hour, and they're driving for 3 hours. So what would be the distance that they covered? Then it would be 100 times 3, which is 300. So that's pretty straightforward. That's the kind of math we're doing every day. But this kind of math with the variables, no, that looks pretty confusing. So what a lot of people are going to do at this point, yeah, I see some people are posting some answers. So some people are saying answer choice A. Well, let's find out what this might be. And first of all, let's maybe look at different ways of doing this question. Now, because this is reminding us of what we've done in school, then perhaps the way to do this question is to kind of try to mentally get ourselves back to that high school. So let's try to do this. What is it that we've done in high school? Well, we learned some formulas, and we learned some algebra, and we learned some ways to build an equation and then solve it. Right? That's how our teachers taught us how to deal with these questions. So let's remember some formulas. First of all, distance is equal to speed times time, or rate times time. So that's the common formula. Now, we are asked here, what is the distance? The question is asking how many miles. So in order for us to find the distance, we need the speed and the time, right? Now, are we given the speed and the time? Well, yes, kind of. We are given the speed from home, but we're not given the time from home. So maybe we could say, okay, well, let's assign a new variable. That's what we usually do, right? We just say, okay, something we don't know, let's just give it a variable. Let's maybe call it T1 from home. And then back home, we have a speed as well. So that's Y, but we don't have the time again. So it's T2. And then what we can also do is try to incorporate somehow the total time T, and that's going to be the sum of T1 and T2. The distances are the same. I feel like I'm starting to lose some of you. And then we can start building some equations. It looks like we have quite a few variables, so equations. So we need to start making sense of these, maybe isolate and substitute and try to plug into another equation. And usually what happens after about 5 minutes for most people is they just give up. Right? So it feels like we really have to go back to high school and maybe, sit back in a class. So some people maybe at this point feel like there's no way I can do this. And why do I even need to do that if I'm trying to get into a business school? I'm way past that. Right? So maybe the problem isn't necessarily with this question. Maybe the problem is the way we're trying to approach it, because the GMAT is a graduate level test for us to get into a business school. There's actually a reason why this graduate level test is required by the majority of the business schools. And even if you might get a waiver potentially for the GMAT, you might want to consider whether it's a good idea to take that waiver, right? Because the GMAT isn't just used for the applications, it's also used for scholarships, it's also used for recruitment. So if you want to, for example, participate in some recruitment activities on campus, some of the companies that come to recruit on campus, like consulting firms, investment banks, they actually ask for the GMAT score, right? And also the GMAT is an exam that supposedly is going to prepare you for the business school. So how does it do that? By asking us questions way back from the high school. Well, it's because the approach to the questions that we would want to take on a real test would probably be different from the way that we approach things in high school. Just like if you want to be a future leader or a business leader, you would probably want to start solving business problems in a different way compared to how we learned them back in high school, right? Because if we try to do the same thing as everybody else does, then how do we expect a different result? So perhaps we should look at a different approach. Instead of calling it the theory approach, let's go with the mastery approach. And I'll actually explain what the difference is. So here's how this approach is going to unfold. We could start by understanding the general concept, which is the distance is equal to rate times time. What does that mean? Well, I'll give you an example. If you're driving at 100 kilometers an hour for 3 hours, then of course, your distance covered is going to be 300. And when we do that, what we do in this case is we take the speed and we multiply it by time, and that's what we do pretty much every day, right? If you're thinking about how long it's going to take you to travel from Montreal to Ottawa, well, then that's what you probably are going to do. We always multiply speed and time, and it's just common sense. It won't ever occur to us to do something else to these two numbers. So, for example, if somebody comes and says, well, look, why don't you just add these numbers? Imagine you're driving at 100 kilometers an hour for 3 hours. Why don't you add these two numbers, 103, and you're going to get 103, and that will be your distance. You'll probably look at this and say, what are you talking about? This is absolutely not how you do things, right? Well, look, the GMAT is an exam that is also about kind of real life. So if we can't add speed and time in real life, then why would we want to add speed and time on the GMAT? Of course, we're not going to do that. Now, I've asked you whether the answer choices actually help, and most of you said no. Well, let's actually have a look at the answer choices from a slightly different perspective. Are there any answer choices that do things that are very weird that we know we shouldn't do? Like, for example, answer choice B. It is trying to add speed x to time t in the numerator. Can we add speed and time and get 103? Like 103 of what? We're adding 100 kilometers an hour to 3 hours, and then we're getting what? Oranges? So we know B is definitely an answer that's not going to be possible. And now, keeping along with the same train of thought, we can also recognize that answer choices D and E would also not work because they're also trying to add speed and time. So guess what? We are down to 2 answer choices only. Of these 2 remaining answer choices, how many do you think could be the correct answer? Could there be 2 correct answers? Well, not on the GMAT. On some other tests, yes, potentially. For example, GRE has a question type where you could have up to 8 different options, and they ask you to choose all of the ones that apply. So they could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or all 8. That could be correct. Whereas on the GMAT, there's only 1 correct, which means at this point, once I'm down to 2 options only, I could look at either one of them. It doesn't really even matter which one. And I could try to assess whether it is correct. Perhaps I can look at A. I know some people mentioned that they feel like A is the correct answer. So maybe let's try to see if A is correct. Well, A is giving us a formula for finding distance, and it's x divided by y times t. Now, x divided by y is one speed divided by another speed. We call it a ratio of 2 speeds. Right? If you divide one speed by another speed, you would get some sort of a number, a coefficient, like somebody's twice as fast as somebody else. Well, that ratio is number 2. It's not the speed. So if you take that number and multiply it by t, which is hours, we are going to get hours. We're not going to get miles. We need the miles, right? We need the speed multiplied by time. We do not get the speed when we divide one speed by another speed. That means A is not the correct answer. That actually means that C has to be the correct answer. Why is it correct? Well, because it's the only one that's left. And we can do this in 30 seconds. Notice that we haven't really done any algebra. We haven't done any lengthy calculations because, some people, and I can tell you a little bit of an anecdotal story, is we have a lot of people applying to be GMAT instructors here at AdmitMaster. We've been around since 1998, so it's a very well-established company, and we have people applying all the time, and we invite them for an interview. And often we're going to give them a question like this, or sometimes even this particular question. And, obviously people who are applying, they are usually, quite smart. And very often what they would do is they would try to solve this problem. And about half of them will make a mistake. So even though we might be comfortable with algebra, you might still want to avoid doing algebra, right? Because again, some of these things that I'm sharing with you, like even if you get the GMAT waiver, you might not want to take it, or even if you might be able to do algebra, you might not want to do it. There might be reasons for that, right? It's saving time, giving yourself more advantage in some perhaps other areas, like maybe giving yourself more time for other questions, reducing your chance of making a mistake. And that really, hopefully this one question, I'm going to show you another question as well. Hopefully it gives you a general idea of what this test is all about. It's a kind of like a strange test. And if you're looking at this test and like, wow, that's strange. That's different from what I've done before. And one of the main reasons for that is that what we've done before was secondary school level tests, and perhaps college undergraduate level tests. While the GMAT is a graduate level test. So it has to be a very advanced test. I mean, think about this. You're going to go to a business school, a competitive business school such as John Molson School of Business. You're going to get trained for 2 years on different case methods. You're going to participate in case competitions. You're going to work hard, solve a lot of problems. The business school want to make sure you have the right skills to actually be able to go through this process. And when you graduate, you're going to get hired and you are going to be the future leader. So as a future leader, you want to be able to look at things differently and do things differently from the majority of other people who keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so that's why this exam is different. And it's quite uncomfortable, at least initially. And this is actually a quote, an interesting quote from the people who make the test, the GMAT, Graduate Management Admission Test. Now, you might be wondering, who is the GMAT? Well, the GMAT is an actual organization that develops this test. They run and administer the test. They create the questions for the test. They don't actually help you beat the test. Now, we at AdmitMaster, we are the partners of the GMAT, so we are the organization that actually helps you do well on the test. Right? You can kind of think of this as, imagine you were to go for your driving test. Well, the GMAT is like a Ministry of Transportation, where you show up and there's an examiner and you actually demonstrate that you are able to drive a car. Whereas we are a driving school. We actually teach you how to drive, how to take this test, different strategies and techniques and shortcuts. And we also prepare you for the rigor of the test. Because there's one thing is to know how to do a couple of questions. Another thing is to show up for the test. That's very stressful, very time restricted. You only have 2 minutes per question, and you have to work very fast and stay very focused. Somebody mentioned I need to get focused a little bit more on the questions or on the answer choices. Well, imagine this was just one question. You're going to have 64 questions on this test. And I'll show you a little bit about the structure of this test in just a moment as well. So the important thing to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is this is not a test of knowing any specific subject matter. You're trying to get into a business school, but you don't need to know anything about business. You don't need to know anything about other subjects as well. The GMAT can give you passages about almost anything. And specifically, if we're talking about the verbal section, they might give you passages about astrophysics, molecular biology, pretty much anything in the world. But you do not need to be an expert in those. Instead, what you need to do is demonstrate that you could reason through these problems. You could think differently. The GMAT calls them higher order reasoning skills. These are the skills that will really help you succeed in the business school, as well as the skills that are going to be in demand in the current workplace, in the 21st century workplace. So when many people are considering preparing for the test, the initial shock is, I don't remember the formulas. So what we find here at AdmitMaster, and I was very fortunate to have taught the GMAT now for over 15 years. So I literally have seen thousands of people who come through our programs and thousands of people that meet at different events. And I see that a lot of people are trying to spend too much time building the foundations and learning the formulas. But at the end of the day, that is just the foundation. What is going to help you succeed is learning different approaches and different strategies. And ultimately, shifting our mindset a little bit, because most of us have gone through a secondary school system where we've been drilled by our teachers that knowledge is power. Particularly me, I graduated at the end of the 20th century, 1990s. Yeah, I'm a little bit older than most of you. And even up to this day, the technology isn't necessarily used as well in the business schools. So I was told a lot by my teachers that knowledge is power. And if I want to learn, for example, how to swim, all I have to do is acquire this knowledge, right? And I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of what that means. And these days, knowledge isn't actually power anymore. Because think about this. You have ChatGPT that knows the answers, and the Wikipedia and everything else that knows the answers to pretty much every question that you might have. I have an 8-year-old daughter at home. Well, if she doesn't know something, she just asks ChatGPT, right? And if I don't know something, she just tells me, Daddy, go and ask ChatGPT. So it's not the knowledge that's power, it's the skill that's power. So that's why preparing for this test is going to be not just about acquiring knowledge, and it's going to require a different approach as well. Let me give you an example. So here's one of our students, Daria. She came to us when she wanted to apply to a very competitive master's program. Her initial diagnostic score was very poor, 380. And she admitted that she isn't really a math person. Now, she graduated from an undergraduate business program with pretty good grades. So definitely having that score initial score was a little bit of a humbling experience. This was a diagnostic test, right? And we usually suggest take a diagnostic test, see what it's like, and see what your score is like, because that's going to give you an honest assessment, right? Like, for example, and I love analogies, right? Imagine you go to the gym and you want to weigh 100 pounds. Well, wouldn't it be great to know whether right now you're 105 or 300, right? You want to know that, right? Because then based on this, you're going to be able to develop the right plan to achieve your goal, if that is the goal you want to achieve. Right? So what Daria did is she came to our program, and what was important is that really she started focusing on a different way of thinking. And I really love her quote that she wrote on our Google review page. She said, I learned how to think outside the box. I learned how to manage my time and stress, and I learned how to think like a CEO, right? So you really have to start thinking differently about the GMAT, about this whole experience, because this is not about going back to high school. This is really about teaching yourself or getting trained on the right skills. And I'm actually going to show you how you can do this. There's a process you can follow. This is a process that if you come to our class, we are going to walk you through this entire process. But I will actually reveal to you today what this process is like so that you can start building that process for yourself. Somebody's asking me, can you take the GMAT anytime or in the exams on certain days or months? Well, it depends on where you are. Now, in Canada, for example, the exam is available in pretty much any major city. So if you're in Montreal or Toronto or Ottawa or any other major city, you can take the exam in person. The exam in person is generally available 6 days a week. Usually the test centers are closed on Sundays. You can also take the test online. If you are in other countries, you need to check whether the test centers are available in your country and whether the online exams are available in your country. In certain countries, the online exams are not available for certain regulations. Like, for example, in China, it is not possible to take the online exam due to the government regulations. So that's what you want to check. But if the online exam is available, it is available 24/7. So yes, you can take it anytime. Of course, you need to be prepared. So how long is it going to take? Well, here, for example, for Daria, it took her 3 months to prepare. That is studying very efficiently to prepare for this test. And I'm actually going to show you how you can study very efficiently. So how many months do we recommend? Well, it depends. It depends on the sort of approach that you're going to take. If you're very efficient and you follow a structured program and you get the right sort of coaching, you can prepare for the GMAT within about 3 to 4 months. Now, it also depends, of course, how much time you have available. So here for Daria, she went from basically the bottom 10% of all test takers to the top 10% of all test takers in a matter of just 3 months. But you need to stay very focused, and this is very important. And again, I'm going to show you how you can do that. Now, a couple of important things to mention also about the test. This is a fairly short test. It is 2 hours, 15 minutes, and it actually consists of 3 sections: quantitative reasoning, which is all about math; verbal reasoning, which is not about math; and data insights, which is about half and half. So some questions involve math, some questions don't, and some questions involve both qualitative and quantitative data. You're given 45 minutes to answer approximately 20 questions. So it's just around 2 minutes per question. If you would like to know more about the structure of the test, the breaks, the sort of rules of the test, the rules of taking a test are, of course, very strict because this is what's called a high stakes test. So this is a test where your results are going to determine to a very large part what are some of the scholarships you're going to be able to achieve, whether you are going to be able to get into your dream business school, some of the recruitment opportunities as well. So that's why the procedures for the test are extremely strict. You are going to be getting a series of assessments as part of your score. Every section is going to get its own score on the scale of 60 to 90. You're also going to get a total score on the scale of 205 to 805. And of course, every section, as well as the total score, is going to be bell curved. So the business schools are not just looking at your raw score, they are looking, of course, at your percentile score, right? So for many business schools, you need to achieve a certain percentile score. For example, for the John Molson School of Business, you need to achieve a minimum of 49th percentile. So that means you need to be in the top half of all of the test takers to even be considered to apply for the application to the John Molson MBA program. Now, to be considered for a program doesn't necessarily mean that you are admitted to the program. So usually you would want to get a higher score. Now, if you would like to come to some of our additional seminars, we dig a lot deeper into some of these question types. So now we're talking a little bit about math primarily, but if you are interested in our verbal refresher seminar, you can go on our website, admitmaster.com, and register for both deeper math refresher seminars, which is a much extended version of what we have today for just 40-45 minutes, as well as our verbal refresher seminar. And that's going to be December 17th. You do find all of these at admitmaster.com/offer. And I will put a link at the end of our seminar so that you can see all of these. Now, what's important also is the GMAT is a computer adaptive test. So what does it mean, computer adaptive? Well, that means that the test adapts to your performance. As you are answering the questions keep getting easier or harder depending on how well you do. Now, wouldn't we want to go to a test and have an easy test, right? Like if I'm taking a driving test, I want to go to a test center that gives me an easy test, right? Compared to like going to a test center where there's so much traffic and during rush hour, that's going to be hard. I might not get my driver's license, right? Because in that case, there's a pass and fail. Whereas here, there's no pass and fail. So what you would want to do is you would want to essentially anticipate to see hard questions, because that is what you are, that is what's going to help you get a high score on the GMAT. Right? And that's why a lot of people, when they start preparing for the test, they do a few questions from the beginning of the book, and they feel like, okay, well, that's pretty easy, I can manage it. But then as they start getting harder questions, they feel like they are not able to handle them anymore. And that's why statistically, very interesting statistics that you might want to hear is that only less than 1% of people who are considering going to a business school actually end up taking the real test, right? So according to the GMAT statistics, about 13 million people consider going to a business school. Only about 100,000 people take the GMAT. And of course, if you're considering getting a super elite score, which is in the top 10%, that will help you get into pretty much any consulting firm, investment bank. It will certainly secure your application to a competitive business school. Then that is the sort of chances that you're dealing with. And that's why so many people give up. Right? And I'll give you another example really quickly. Darini, she was actually a student from Montreal. She came to us and said, I don't think I can do the GMAT. That's the first thing that she said. She signed up for a one-on-one consultation on our website. And when I called her, she said, Sergey, I just want to tell you, I don't believe I can do it. Right? And she said, I tried everything. I said, what did you try? She said, well, I have all the GMAT books, and they're all on my bookshelf, and I watched a bunch of videos, and And every time I try to do this, I feel like I'm failing miserably, and I feel like my confidence is just going down, and I don't feel like it's possible for me to do it. And so what was really important is we had to reassess her own level of confidence, because that lack of confidence came not necessarily from what she could do, but it came from what she has done so far and the sort of advice that she was getting so far. But finally, when she came and said, look, I'm really serious. If there is a way for me to do it, I want to follow through. And long story short, in about 3 months as well, she was able to get that score, got her score to 700, and now she's never looked back. She works for the United Nations now, and she completely changed her life. Right? She started from having no job and being let go during COVID to now really just living her dream life. She lives in London, England, and completely transformed her life. So that is definitely something that you could do. Now, the question is, how do you do that? How do you actually get that GMAT score? How do you prepare that awesome application? So let's talk a little bit about the resources for the GMAT, and I'm also going to give you a plan of how you can start structuring your studies. So first of all, how do we usually study for the test? We usually get books, right? Now, will books be necessary for the GMAT? Yes, absolutely. But what you need to remember is that the books serve a certain specific purpose. Now, these are the books, by the way, they are called the official GMAT guide. These are the books that contain questions from real past exams. These are the real questions from past exams. Now, let me just give you an idea. When the organization that makes the test develops the questions, they spend literally months and thousands of dollars developing every single question. So every single question you're going to find in that book that appeared on a past exam cost that organization approximately $2,000. Let it sink in. 2,000 US dollars to develop every single question. So when you're buying these books, you're getting about $5 million worth of questions, and you're paying less than $100 for these books, right? So definitely that is something that you should have. But remember that these books are a sample of questions. They don't actually teach you how to beat the test. So what a lot of people will do is they'll say, yeah, but I need the books. I need the books that help me beat the test. Now, here are a couple of things to remember about the books. Now, the books, again, are very valuable, but they serve a specific purpose. The books teach us the theory. They don't necessarily help us develop the skills. Now, remember how to swim versus actually jumping into a pool? The books also usually don't tell us what's really important. Any book outside of the official GMAT guide does not contain real questions from the real test. So any other book, other than the one that's published by the GMAT, contains questions that were written by somebody who probably got paid $5, $10, $15 to essentially copy paste an official question and modify it a little bit. And sometimes they do a good job and sometimes not. So you want to make sure that when you study these books or with any other material, like for example, some of the online courses as well include, or the majority of them will include these simulated questions. So when you're preparing for this test, that's why they have their own mock exams and their own questions. So when you're preparing for the test, you feel like you're getting ready for the test, except you're getting ready for their test, not the official test, right? Because you need the official questions and the official practice test. You need to learn from the official questions and not just the questions that somebody else written that maybe look like the real ones, but they're actually not. So which test are we preparing for then in this case, right? Also with, and any book except for the official guide doesn't contain these real questions. And of course, with books, you can't ask questions if something's unclear. And also statistically, only about 10% of people read past the first chapter in the book. Just like I showed you an example of Darini. who spent 4 or 5 years trying to read the books. So when you are thinking about how I'm going to structure my studies, what resources I'm going to use, somebody was asking, can you give us an overview of what we provide? Yes, I'm going to give you an overview just in a couple of moments. Do your research and understand, am I preparing for the real test, or am I preparing for a test that somebody just created or looks like the GMAT, but it's actually not? And am I really understanding the sort of a communication, the sort of marketing that I'm hearing? Because I see a lot of these things, and if you go on Reddit, there's just so much noise and so many fake news. And many of our students come to us and say, well, I went on Reddit and I started really having a little bit of an anxiety because it seems like everybody's getting a score of 730 or 750, right? And in fact, there are some companies and some courses that use a bit of a misleading advertising. They say, well, look, an average person who comes to our course gets a score of 730 because they go on Reddit and 5 people posted that they've taken that course and 5 people said that they got a score of 730, right? So be careful about what sort of a message you're hearing. And I want to tell you from my experience, I don't want to sugarcoat things for you, because whenever you come to us, we have a very honest discussion. And the very honest discussion is this. This is not an easy test, but this is a test that allows you to stand out among other candidates. If this were an easy test, and if everybody would get a score of 730, then how come only very few people in the world actually get that score? So, but you can get that score. You just need the right structure, the right strategies, and the right support. Anybody can get that score. And it all starts with really understanding how should I structure my studies. So let me give you a quick overview of how you can actually prepare for this test. And if you decide to join us here at AdmitMaster, this is actually the steps that you're going to be taking. So step number 1 is we're going to start building the foundation. So what does that mean? That means that for the GMAT, you need to remember certain things, like what is a prime number? What's a quadratic equation? What's the least common multiple and the greatest common factor? Right? What's the difference between the fact and an opinion? So these are some of the things that we've learned way back in our high school and secondary school and the middle school, and maybe sometimes in the elementary school. But these are some things that we've forgotten. So we need to start remembering them. Now, remember I said that many people just start doing the foundations and they spend so much time relearning the foundations, that they spend so much time trying to get comfortable with this algebra and formulas that they lose track of what really will make a difference on the test. This is just a foundation. This is maybe 10 or 20% of your preparation, right? Imagine you're trying to build a house. This is just a basement. You can't really live there. So, but this is a very important step, this foundation. So if you join our class, we are going to give you access to the foundational course. We're going to give it to you for free as part of the program, where you're going to be learning these foundations. And we want to make sure that you're very efficient. So you don't want to go back to school and learn everything. You want to learn just what's necessary for the GMAT. And you'll be doing some exercises, doing some assessments, taking some mini tests to make sure that you're comfortable with the foundations. Step number 2 is you are actually starting to develop the skill. Again, just like when we learned how to drive a car, we're actually now getting in a car and we're starting to drive. So that's what we're going to do in the class. When you come to the class, some people are asking, what's the difference between a live class and a self-study program? Well, the biggest difference is you are getting immediate feedback. You are able to ask questions, but most importantly, the instructor is able to tell you what you're doing right and wrong. It's kind of like a difference between, doing yoga in a class versus doing yoga at home. I have an amazing yoga program that I purchased at some point. I paid, $49 for it, and I still have the videos. Guess how many times did I actually do that? Maybe once or twice, right? But when I actually pay for my yoga classes and I show up, the instructor shows me how to do it and then tells me, Sergey, you're doing something wrong. and able to correct this. And I can see a much faster progress. So this is why the classes and these live programs, whether one-on-one or in a small group, they really work so much faster than the self-study programs, and a lot fewer people will actually give up compared to people studying by themselves. Right? And of course, the third part of this preparation after the class is going to be practicing. Practice is going to be so important. Why? Because if I only do a few questions in a class, but I don't practice on my own, then on the day of the test, I can't rely on the instructor being there and tell me in my ear, here's how you do this question. No, I need to be able to do these questions myself. Now, here at AdmitMaster, we use real questions from past exams, the questions developed by the GMAT. We're one of the very few organizations that are actually able to do that. So when you come to our class, we actually prepare you for the real test, not the test that somebody else created. It may look like the GMAT, but it's actually not. And so practice is going to be very, very important. Now, the way our program works is that if you were to join our live class, we call it an all-inclusive coaching program. Why is it all-inclusive? Because it includes all the study materials. It includes small classes, so usually about 10, 15 people in a class. And in addition to the classes, what's really valuable is we give you a best-in-class score guarantee. Now, I know sometimes you go online and there are companies that almost offer a guarantee of 800 score. They say, well, if you don't get an 800 score, what we're going to do is we'll give you an extended access to our books or our self-study courses, right? But that's not really, I want a sky score, right? So what we do here at AdmitMaster is we give you coaching outside of a class as well. You can come back for 3 personal tutoring sessions, one-on-one for 1 hour. We also allow you to come back and retake the class completely free for 1 year, no questions asked. And we have a special promotion now for Black Friday. And that promotion is that in addition to the discount on any of our live classes and the free foundations course, we also give you free 1 hour of essay editing with our editor, with our chief editor, who is actually working on a lot of the applications for our clients. Usually costs thousands of dollars to work on the entire application, but we give you this 1 hour of essay editing for free. So we offer classes on weekends and evenings, so they're very convenient, and you can join them outside of your work. And also depending on which time zone you're in, if you're a different time zone, you might realize that either weekends or evenings, Eastern time, might work best for you. We are located in Toronto. We are a Canadian company. We've been around since 1998. We have a test center in Toronto where you can take classes in person. A lot of our clients are coming from Montreal as well. If you take our class from Montreal or anywhere else in the world, then you could take our classes virtually. We do offer self-study programs as well, so you are definitely welcome to try out some of our self-study programs. We also have a promotion that if you start our self-study program, if you pay for the self-study program, it's only a couple of dollars a day. In fact, here's something that's hot off the press. Until this Friday, we have 50% off on our self-study programs, something we offer only once a year. It's only until this Friday. It is not coming back. So not for Boxing Day, not for Cyber Monday, that 50% off is not going to be back. So if you want to take advantage of that 50% off, half price on self-study program, you need to do it until this Friday. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is go to admitmaster.com/offer, sign up for a free trial. You have a chance to try it out until Friday. And then as long as by midnight on Friday, you enter the discount code that you're going to find on admitmaster.com/offer, you are going to be able to save 50% off. If you get a subscription, a monthly subscription, that 50% off is going to continue until your subscription is valid. And if at any point in time while your subscription is still valid, you want to upgrade to a live course, you can do that by simply paying the difference. Right? So ladies and gentlemen, the test prep doesn't have to be expensive. Now, the exam itself is quite expensive, but the test prep, honestly, for what it's worth, costs you less than a cup of coffee a day. And you can really give yourself an advantage and get much higher results. For example, among the AdmitMaster students, about a third will get scores of the top 10%, 645 and above. Right? How long does it take? Takes anywhere from 6 weeks, which is the duration of our course, to 6 months, usually. Right? So let me give you a couple of examples. 6 weeks to get to a score of 760. Somebody who took our classes, studied full time, so about 30 hours a week. This person was between the jobs and was able to get an amazing score. Another example, somebody who took 6 months. This is a person who was a nurse working in the emergency room, working 12-hour shifts, trying to find time to also study for the test. Yes, takes a little bit longer, but you still need to have a very structured approach. And imagine if you get the score in the top 10%, what kind of opportunities would open your way. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's a message I want to leave with you today, and we're almost done, is if you want to be successful in this journey, and if you want to really have a choice of what companies to apply to, what scholarships to apply to, get into your dream business school, you need to make sure that you are committed to this process. Because honestly, if you're committed, think about the time when you really, really wanted something. You really wanted it. And maybe initially you didn't know how to get there. And honestly, now after the seminar, you have the exact plan. Now start building the foundations, come to the classes, learn the strategies, get that feedback, get engaged, and then do the practice on the real questions. Do the real mock exams. That's how you get ready for the exam. If you really, really want something, you will find a way. You can find the time, you can find the money, you can find the resources, you can find the right support. You don't have to have all the resources, you just can be resourceful, because all of these resources are available to help you. You just need to say, yes, I am committed to my own success. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're really serious about getting results, then we'd love to work together. We'd love to help you. We offer a lot of our services that are offered for free. Our refresher class, practice tests, free consultations, free resume reviews. If you would like to take advantage of them, then please go on our website, admitmaster.com/offer. I'm going to put a link here in the chat box as well. Please click on that link. You will also, of course, find there a special offer that we have right now for Black Friday, which is 50% off all of our self-study courses, as well as free 1 hour of essay editing with our chief editor, in addition to the $200 discount of any of our live course. So all of these resources are available for you. Now the ball is in your court to really start taking advantage of these. Because if you want to take your life to the next level, the time could be found, the money could be found, the resources could be found, the energy could be found, the support could be found. You just need to have the right commitment. Now, finally, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that I've been very fortunate myself to complete my MBA program about 20 years ago. I was a relatively new immigrant to this country, and I wanted to really put my profile on a map and get much better opportunities for myself. As soon as I graduated from my MBA program, my salary tripled. I got a job that I couldn't even imagine before my MBA. I also made friends who are still my friends to this day. Some of my best friends are the people I went to school with. So I was able to build this network, build this connection, get that credibility. And it's not just about getting these 3 letters MBA under your belt. It's also, and it's not only about these skills that you're going to develop that are going to transform your life, but it's also really about just getting in to be a part of this community where you've been selected through a very competitive process for a business school that doesn't accept everyone. You really have to work hard in order to be accepted to the business school. So that's why the people you're going to be studying with are going to be also people who went through this competitive selection process. The people who are going to come to hire you they will know that you've gone through this competitive selection process, you've gone through this very rigorous training. And as a result, you are the kind of person that they can now hire and they can now trust. So that's why if you speak with people who have an MBA, especially the ones that maybe have done an MBA 3 to 5 to 10 years ago, ask them how their life has changed. And you will see, and again, I've been very fortunate to have been teaching the GMAT now for 15 years. I can see so many people completely changed our lives. And I can be there until Christmas, talking nonstop about different stories of how people completely transformed their lives, started their own companies, got to work for, maybe initially didn't even believe in themselves, got to work for some of the top companies. You know, some of our clients who work like senior executives at Amazon and Facebook and Google and, you know, different banks, and started their own companies and raised millions of dollars in funding. All of this is going to be possible if you simply commit to your own journey of success. And of course, it all starts with asking yourselves the right questions, making the right decisions, making the right investment of your time and resources, choosing the right program. From my side, my wish for you is try to decide what is really something that is going to make you happy 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and start building that plan to get there. Because you came here to this seminar, you took an hour of your time, I will be happy to connect with you for a 20-minute consultation. If you would like to send your resume to me, I would be happy to give you some feedback and suggestions. Very candid, very confidential. I'm not sharing it with anybody whatsoever. So if you would like to do that, we can have that conversation of the rest of your application as well. I can give you some suggestions. So for example, if you, let's say, take a practice test on the GMAT and want to understand, well, how do I get to my target score? Well, I can also give you some suggestions of what programs might work, what programs might not work for you, and so on. All right, so I'm here to help. I am your resource, and I'm very happy that we have partners with the John Molson School of Business. We've done that for many years. So certainly, if you have any questions about the John Molson School of Business, please remember to reach out to Corey. We are going to follow up with you by email. We're going to include all of our contact information as well. A couple of questions here. Somebody's asking, how much is the test? Well, the test itself, the GMAT test, if you convert it to Canadian dollars, it's approximately 450 Canadian dollars to take the test. So you don't want to take the test multiple times. The rule says you can take the test only 5 times a year. So imagine spending $2,000 on a test every year. And I have seen people like this. I'm like, maybe you should learn from your mistakes and, you know, start taking a more structured approach to studying. So it is an expensive test, and that's why you want to prepare for it. And if you are the kind of person who are on a strict budget, that I would like to encourage you to really take advantage of our Black Friday sale, because it literally gives you that preparation for like a third or half of the cost of the real test. But it's only available until Friday. We only do this once a year. So make sure that if you want to try out this program for the first few days, please do so, but make sure that you actually get a subscription by Friday to save 50% off. And you're going to find a discount code at admitmaster.com/offer. If you have any questions for myself or for Corey, please put them in a Q&A box or a chat box. I just want to thank Corey again for joining us today. Thank all of you for taking the time to join us today. We are going to send you a recording of this seminar. So if you have any friends who would like to see it and see some examples and understand a little bit more about the test, then please feel free to share it with your friends as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, thanks again. I think that at this point we can wrap up for today. I look forward to seeing some of you again. And I know many of you mentioned that you would like to get contacted to talk a little bit more about the different preparation programs that might work for you. I will certainly do so as well. I'll reach out to you personally, and please look for some follow-up emails with the contact details and with some of the resources that you can use to start preparing for the test, as well as some of the links to some of the free resources and some of these promotions. So thanks again, and have a wonderful day. Take care.
Great. Thanks, Sergey.
Thanks so much. Thanks,
Bye.
Corey.